I'd like to start this tutorial out with just a quick background. In sex-linked recessive crosses, we're dealing with a gene that's found on the X chromosome, and in humans, we may or may not know that females, the 23rd pair, is XX, and so in a female, you have two X chromosomes. And in males, the 23rd pair is XY. So you only have one. And usually we use symbols like this. This would be the female symbol, and then this would be the male symbol. So what happens is, in some cases, a certain trait is going to be carried by a gene on the X chromosome. And in this particular example, we're going to look at hemophilia. Hemophilia is a recessive disorder. So in genetics, we tend to use a letter to represent that gene. And in this case, I'm going to use the lowercase letter h to represent hemophilia. And then what I'll do is I'll use the capital letter H to represent the normal gene, which would be a normal blood clotting. And a little background, if you're not sure, hemophilia is a disease where the blood just doesn't clot properly, and so any kind of minor cut or bruise can cause excessive bleeding and often death. Today we have more treatments for this, but if you would have had this disease 150, 200 years ago, then it would often lead to death at an early age. And the most famous example of a hemophiliac family would be the royal family in Europe around the 1800s, and Queen Victoria is kind of the most famous carrier of this disease, and I'll get into that word in a minute. But basically, a disorder like this would be represented on the X chromosomes, and in a case where you have a female who is normal but passes the disease on to her family, we would represent it like this. We would show the two X's, but then we would also put the gene on there, and that's what I'm going to do here. I'm going to represent this bar as a gene, and this is a normal big H. So that female has a normal gene for clotting, but she also happens to be a carrier for hemophilia. So you would show her like that. And this is going to end up being the main cause of the disorder being passed on. And in this case, this was Queen Victoria who started this down. And they're not exactly sure where it started, whether it was a mutation from her parents or in her, but she was traced back to be the original carrier of this disorder. So if we were to create a hypothetical situation where this woman who was a carrier for the disease was mated with a male who is normal, then here is our male, and then you would show him, and he would have a normal hemophilia, normal blood clotting gene rather, and you would use a capital H there. So how would this look? Well, you can do a Punnett square just like you normally would with any other kind of trait. However, you're going to find that the results are going to end up being a little different. So what we do is we can choose which side to put the female. We'll put her up here on the top of this box. We put the two X's here representing her gametes, so her egg cells would have either this X or that X, and we'll bring the normal blood clotting gene and put it right here, and then we can put the hemophilia gene right here. So again, this just represents her gametes that she could make. And then the male we'll put over here, we'll put his X here, and then we'll put the Y here, and we'll give him his regular blood clotting gene. Now, if you just match these up, as in if the sperm that the male creates has this chromosome in it, and it matches up with an egg that the female created with this chromosome in it, then you would just have your two X's, and that makes a female. And you bring the H's right along with it, and you then determine from this Punnett square that at least 1/4 of their kids should be a normal. So this would be a normal female. And then if these are the two gametes that match up, again, then we would have an X and an X. We'd have a normal clotting gene here, capital H, and then a hemophilia gene there. So here's another female. Again, she's going to be okay. She's not going to have hemophilia, but she is going to be a carrier for that disorder. So then we'll get to the males. If this mating creates a male from these two gametes, then this male is going to be okay. He's going to have the one dominant blood clotting gene, and he's perfectly normal. This male, however, is going to be the one that was unfortunate enough to get the lowercase h gene, the hemophilia gene. And even though he only has one recessive disorder, the problem is he doesn't have another X chromosome to cover it up. So therefore, he has hemophilia. And so in this particular case, you would have 1/4 of the children being a completely normal female, 1/4 of the children being a carrier female, 1/4 being a normal male, and 1/4 being a hemophiliac male. And so that is why sex-linked disorders like this tend to occur much more common in, or much more often in males than in females. And in hemophilia, the numbers are somewhere in the neighborhood of 1 in 10,000 males and 1 in 100 million females. So that is just a basic intro to sex-linked recessive crosses, and I hope it was helpful.